What's up, YouTube? What's up, YouTube? It's not me too, it's YouTube. Hey, this is James Barber. You're on my channel at James Barber Now. I have just finished the Wednesday evening performance of Phantom of the Opera on Broadway at the Majestic Theater here in New York City. And I'm doing my YouTube Live. Every Thursday I do a Thrive Thursday from my Facebook page, which is facebook.com/James Barber Now. That's sort of my handle all across all social media, at James Barber Now, because I like to live in the moment. The past doesn't exist anymore, the future's not created yet. So you gotta be right here. YouTube is a cool platform. I put up videos, recorded videos, things like that, but it also allows you to do a live video. And my time is so short that I figured, let me just do some live stuff. And you know, that way I can get content up and get out to you guys live, and then it'll be maintained on the Facebook page. Sorry, not the Facebook page, the YouTube page. And I guess it'll stream over to Facebook as well. Hey, I titled this one Starving Artist Syndrome. It's something I talk about a lot because I think there's an artist in all of us, no matter what profession you're in. And I happen to be a professional artist, and I'm surrounded by professional artists, whether they're performers or designers or singers or filmmakers. I mean, that's the industry that I'm in. But there are two things I want to say about that before we get into the content of what I mean by starving artist syndrome. So the first thing is that art is subjective and objective, meaning like some people say that is art and no, I don't think it's art, or I think that's ugly. It's a what do I want to say? It's an opinion-driven medium. So one person can like one song or one sculpture, and somebody else could just hate it, right? So it's subjective, and there used to be a saying when we were kids, like anything you do, you can create art. You can, create a rolled-up ball of paper, and it's art. And I did a blog post on this a while ago because I think there's like a painting that's just a red square, literally it's a red square, sold for like $4 million. They just painted a square canvas and it sold for $4 million, which to me is, I wouldn't buy it for $4 million, but somebody does. So that's number one, is that art is opinion driven. So, create what you want to create. If you feel that it is something that is coming from you, and you want to get that message out there, whatever that message is, that's okay. Go and create it. Action creates traction. I talk about that a lot. The other thing is, excuse me, is there's an artist in all of us. Even if you're not a professional artist, there's a great book by, what's his name? Oh my gosh, Stephen Pressfield, who wrote The War of Art, not The Art of War. He wrote The Legend of Agrabah, that book which turned into a movie. If you get a chance to look at it, it's not The Art of War, not Sun Tzu, it's a play on that. The War of Art. And he talks about art and artists being hobbyists or professionals. Well, I happen to think that there's an artist in everybody. Whether you're an accountant, whether you're a teacher, there is an art to teaching. My mother was a teacher and she taught her whole life. So I think that is a specific art. There's an art there, there's a creative part of that, right? If you're an accountant, there's a creative part of being able to think numerically. There are these savants that can just crunch numbers and run numbers, right? There's an art to it. But also, I think that there's an artist within everybody else who wants to create outside of their field. People who gave up their dreams to be an artist, a professional artist, or paint, or even as a hobby, because they're sitting there going, well, I don't have time, people said I wasn't good, so I really love what I do as an attorney, but guess what, I'm also a drummer. I know doctors who are amazing musicians, right? And they gave up their dreams of becoming an artist because they became a doctor and they love what they do, but they still pursue their love of the art. So I wanted to put those out there because I truly believe that. I truly believe that there's an artist in each and every one of us, no matter if you're an actor or a director or a fashion designer or an accountant. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about was the starving artist syndrome. And this is something that hits all the time. The book that I wrote that we're now finishing and editing, because I realized there were like 3 books in one, was called Starving Artist, and starving is crossed out and it says Thriving Artist. Because the thought, the idea that is sort of ingrained in us from the outside is, well, if you're going to be an artist, you have to starve. You're going to be dirt poor. You're going to be this, and you're not going to be able to achieve your goals. And you're suppressed before you even have a chance to go out. The common thought is that before you even have a chance to go out and try your hand at what you want to do, this passion, this art within you, you're told you can't. You're told it's the hardest profession in the world. Well, it is. It's a very difficult profession to achieve success. That doesn't mean it's not possible, because guess what? People have achieved success. They've achieved massive success. So the question that I put to you as the artist, all artists, is why? Why is it that some people achieve this level of success and others do not? Sure, there's a talent thing that has to be part of it, right? Sorry, I'm switching arms, guys. I gotta get a different selfie stick than my arm. I have this great thing called a DJI Osmo, but it doesn't stream well when I'm out on the street because of the connection. So, what is it that other artists are doing to allow them to achieve their goal? Yes, as I said, there is a skill level. You have to have a certain skill level to play the game. We've talked about it in terms on my Facebook live feeds. If you are an NBA player, a basketball player, right? You have to have a certain level of skill in order to play at that level, right? You're going to need that skill. So given the fact that you've got skill in whatever you want to do, you're continually learning, you're continually growing, what is it that takes these people and sets them apart? What allows them to sustain, to create an income, to create a career? Sorry, there's an ambulance coming, I believe, which is kind of loud. Yeah, here it comes. So forgive me if it's too loud on this one. It's New York City here. I'll flip it around so you can see. New York. There it goes. Ooh, it's loud. Look at that. There it goes. I hope whoever's in there is safe, or whoever they're going to take care of is safe. I used to drive an ambulance when I was in high school. I volunteered in the summers. It was an incredible experience. So whenever I see that, it brings back memories. So the starving artist syndrome, what is it that sets the thriving artists apart from the starving artists, right? It's not just the fact that they've got skill, it's what they do in their careers, how they pursue their careers, and their mindset, which sets them apart, right? Are you going? I had a conversation with a great friend of mine today who's a TV actress. She's a television star and has done multiple movies. And she said, look, there was a point in my life where people were saying, you can't, right? So she goes, I'm doing this now, and guess what? My representatives didn't get me that. My manager didn't get me that. My agent didn't get me that. I did the work. I went out, I made the phone calls, I made the connections, and I made it happen. And that, to me, is the bottom line. You will always have people around you in whatever industry you're working in. Agents in the film and television industry, in the theater industry, are there to help facilitate, get you work. But it's your responsibility. And if they're not able to get you in for a job, what is it that you're going to do that will set you apart and get in the door, right? Because ultimately you want to get in the door and you want to do a great job. If you're a singer and you want to create a concert, or you want to create a CD, how do you get that done? Well, it's expensive to do a CD. Okay, well, figure out a way. Figure out a way that you can step up and step beyond what the average person is doing, right? Grant Cardone, good friend of mine, in business world, right? And he wrote a book called The 10X Rule, which I talked about a while ago. And he said, whatever you think it's going to take to get to where you want to go, you have to multiply that times 10, right? So if you want to expand your social media and you're only doing 2 tweets a day or 1 Instagram post, you have to multiply that times 10. If you want to shoot for $1 million in income, you have to shoot for $10 million in income, and you need to put the effort out to make that happen, right? So one of the things that I used to do as a young actor when I got to New York was I knew that I had to put the pedal to the metal. I knew that I had to push myself to go to the next level. And I'll give you an example of this, and then we'll finish off on the YouTube Live, right? The example is this, and I've talked about it before. There was a time I had a roommate when I first moved to New York, and I split my time between Los Angeles, New York, and other places now. I have the good fortune to do that because I work my butt off. And I used to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. 5 o'clock in the morning, and get to Actors Equity Association, right? Actors Equity Association building is the union that governs stage actors, professional stage actors. I wasn't in the union at the time. I was a non-union actor just coming to New York. And so the building, Actors Equity, would hold auditions for different shows. And they would have what are called open calls, which is where anybody can go and audition. Anybody. Be off the street, you can go and audition, right? You have to have, usually if it's a musical, you have to have some music that you're going to sing. If it's a play, you know, and you don't know what you're doing, you bring a monologue, you know, whatever. It's a dance call, you have to go in as a dancer and be prepared to do that. So the open calls, the sign-ups for the open calls, because there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people vying for just a few small roles in one show, right? So the sign-ups for the open call would start about 10 o'clock in the morning, right? The doors would open at 9 o'clock in the morning, right? Oh, he recognizes me. They do, right there. They know who I am. I can tell because they're staring at me. It's weird. A little weird sometimes. Oh, I'm across the street. So the sign-ups, the doors would open at 9, and the sign-ups would start at 10, right? Well, I would wake up at 5 a.m., because I knew that the line would be long, and there will be a point where they will stop taking people, right? They can only see a certain number of people every day, right? In these different auditions, right? So there's only a certain amount of time during the day. Let's say they're going to see people for, 4 hours, and they're seeing one person every 10 minutes or every 5 minutes. You can do the math, right? Plus they have their lunch breaks and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes things slow down. So I knew that there would be a big line. Well, I got there at 7. This one that I'm talking about, 7:30 in the morning, there were already 75 people outside the door. Already 75 people close to, waiting and lined up. Now there's a McDonald's, I don't know if it's still there, I haven't been there in a while. There was a McDonald's underneath, right? So it was the winter time, people were freezing, that was open, so we used to go in and get a tea and huddle up. 7:30, yeah, like about 7:30 I got there. And so I was in line, right? Well, actually, I was the 75th because I was number 75 when I signed up, I remember that. So I tell a story about it. So I got there at 7:30. The doors didn't even open until 9, right? By the time the doors open, there were people, packed in the McDonald's trying to wait, all that kind of stuff, right? And so we get inside, and I'm number 75. We sign up. Sign up starts at 10. The auditions don't even start until noon, we find out. So here I am, I've been up since 5, making sure that I was prepped and ready, getting to the audition, standing outside at 7:30, right? I sign up. Now, I do have a little bit of time, because once you sign up, you can leave and come back, right? You can go and come back as long as you're signed up and as long as you're there for your appointed time. And so that's what I did, I signed up. I didn't want to go all the way back home because I was already ready to go. And so I just sort of hung out, did some stuff in the city. But that's the tenacity that I looked at the other people. And remind you, there were 74 people already ahead of me, right? It just wasn't me. There were 74 people that had the same idea and got there earlier than I did, right? You get it? It's like waiting in line on Christmas for this one toy, and you're standing outside the Target or the Toys R Us, and it's like people sleep over, right? Well, what are you going to do as an artist that takes you to the next level, right? There's some things that you can do, some things you can't do. I know, like our friend Cassie who's on, if you have children, it's going to be tough, right? I've got kids now. Things have changed, fortunately I have an amazing wife, and we'll go back and forth, and my career is a little different. It's at a different point than it was then. But there's still a drive, there's still a push, there's still looking for what is next, there's still a creating. And for those of you who know me, I'm big on creation. I create my own concerts. I create my equity or non-equity was this. It was an equity audition, but I was non-equity. So I was going in for an equity audition. It was an open call. And it wasn't even an EPA. An EPA is where you have to have points. It was literally an open call because they have to do that. Union shows have to have open mandatory calls every 6 months, whether they're looking for people or not. So what I was saying was that, I even forgot what I was saying. Oh, I create concerts. I create content, right? I go out and I create, and I do not wait for people to come to me and ask me to do things. I don't wait for my agents to put me out for auditions. I don't wait for my my managers and my representatives to go, hey, we've got this stuff. Yes, it was a cattle call. I actually talk about that in the show that I wrote about it. A cattle call is where basically, you know how cattle are just like mingling around, right? There's like hundreds of them in a field. Well, that's what you call a cattle call for an audition for a show. There's just hundreds of people vying for small roles. I have tons of stories on this, but I wanted to share this one with you. And I went in, and so the story goes, I'll truncate it, but you can hear the story. I actually did a show about it called Broadway in Concert. And I was going to sing a really tough tune, and nobody ever sang it, and I'm waiting in line, and the guy right in front of me went in and sang the exact same song that I was about to sing. And so I went in, and the guy in there said, what are you going to sing? And I told him it was Molasses to Rum from 1776. And he said, I just heard it, you got to sing something else. And I didn't want to sing something else because I knew what I could do with the song. So I said, well, that's all I got. This is what I'm going to do. But I did it nicely, right? And so he goes, all right, fine. And we were supposed to only sing 16 bars of music. And he said, give me 8 bars, which was half of what we're supposed to sing. And I got through the first 8 bars, and he stops me. And he goes, all right, start over. And I said, okay. And I went through, and I did the entire song. He didn't stop me. And he basically looked at me, he goes, where you been? I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, where you been? I said, well, I got to New York like 6 months ago or whatever it was, did a couple shows out of town. He goes, oh, okay. Didn't get the job, right? Did not get the job. But that man later became a friend and an ally, and because of that audition, I got other things. The casting director that was in the room at the time, Vinnie Liff, who has passed away, was an amazing guy. I tell the story about when I did The Secret Garden on tour, Broadway show with Audra McDonald, Roger Bart, amazing people. Douglas Sills, we were all on that tour. It was Audra's first show. Vinnie Liff came to Toronto. Now this is something else that I did. Every time that I was in a city that was cool, I got a postcard from that city, like St. Louis or Vancouver, wherever we were, and I would send it to the casting directors, right? And I would send it specifically to Vinnie because Vinnie was so supportive. Now, Vinnie had not cast me in a show at that point, but I had been in multiple times for him, and I was doing the national tour of a Broadway show. And people say, oh, you're wasting your time, nobody's gonna read that, blah, blah, blah. Well, Vinnie, I believe Miss Saigon was opening, the tour was opening, and it was opening in Toronto, and The Secret Garden was in Toronto. So Vinnie cast Miss Saigon. He was the casting director for Miss Saigon. And he was coming up to see the show in Toronto, and he happened to know one of the women in our cast, Anne Ranulfson, who had done Les Mis, because he had cast Les Mis as well. And so he came to see Annie, who was one of our leads in the show. She played Lily in The Secret Garden. Gorgeous, gorgeous show. Amazing voice she has. And so as he was coming up the backstage, we didn't see our show. He was just coming. He was coming to see Miss Saigon, heard that we were in town, wanted to see Anne Ranulfson, and went upstairs and went backstage. And as I was passing him, he goes, hey, James. I'm like, hey, Vinnie, how are you? And he goes, I'm great, man. He goes, hey, and by the way, you know those postcards you keep sending? I'm like, yeah. He goes, keep sending those. I love that. And I went, awesome, right? So here it is. And I wasn't doing it. I was just doing it because that's me. And I thought it was fun, and I wanted to stay connected. I knew that there's a marketing sense to our business. You have to stay current. You have to stay in people's faces. And I wanted to do it in a nice way. And it worked. It worked. And he remembered me. He knew me. He specifically, as he was coming up the stairs, stopped me and thanked me for sending those postcards. I mean, that's the kind of thing that I do just as a person. So as an artist, I started to create those things. I started to do the little extra things that people might not think or might think, tell you not to do. Do them. You enjoy doing them. They create fun times for other people, right? They break the chain of existing events, and you're remembered, right? Exactly, Cassie. Go the extra mile. Go the extra 10 miles. Someone's only going to go 1 mile. Go 10, go 20, go 40, go 30, because that is what it takes to succeed. The starving artist syndrome, yes, not pushy, but pushy is someone's concept of you. Someone could think you're pushy, and you're not. Another person could think you're actually, oh, that's awesome, you're just tenacious or you're eager, right? So it depends upon what what the person thinks, but mostly if you're true to you and you're true to the things that you are creating and the things that you're doing, and you're coming at it from a place of caring and hope and love and knowing that you really want to create a better life for yourself and your artistry and your business. And this goes true to any business, guys. I'm just applying it to artists, because starving artist syndrome. You know, it'll work, right? So the starving artist syndrome is a fallacy. It's just, you're a starving artist because you're not making any money and you're not eating. Well, figure out a way to go make money, which is possible, while you're pursuing your goal. If you're not making the money in your art right now, right? Figure out a way to go make the money, which will allow you to pursue the goal as an artist, to then flourish and prosper in that world, and then your income comes from being an artist, right? You're also creating opportunities, invitation. Absolutely. That's exactly it. The opportunity, by sending Vinny Lift those postcards, created an opportunity. It reminded him continually of me. I wasn't out of sight, out of mind. So think about that, guys. You know, don't live the starving artist syndrome. It is possible to thrive in the arts, and you can actually do it. I love this kind of YouTube stuff. I'm going to sign off. Don't forget Thrive Thursday, this Thursday at facebook.com/James Barber Now. I will talk to you guys soon. Thanks so much. Please share the stream. Subscribe to the channel. Really love it. And we'll talk to you real soon. Okay, bye.